Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I think it's just morning still, so let's get started with our next sessions. We're trying something a little bit different. I'm going to try and do some interviews from the stage. So I've not done this before, but I think we should be okay. We've talked about it, we've planned it. It's all going to be slick as anything. I'm here today with Mark Scanlon, who is Chief Executive of Personal Group. I'm sure many of you know Mark. And Mark's been working on a very big project. I've been one of the people helping him with it, looking at productivity in Great Britain, GB PLC. So we're going to be talking a lot about productivity and technology. And I'm going to let Mark do most of the speaking because I've done far too much speaking this morning. And give him a nice big question to start off with. What is the problem, Mark, with UK productivity?
Okay, well, where to start? Let me just begin by giving some statistics here. The output per hour in the UK is about 18% behind the rest of the G7 nations. And that's something that's persisted in the UK for quite some time. And these statistics are from the National Statistics Office. Francis O'Grady at the TUC has a similar outlook to say that we are creating a lot of jobs, and I'll show you some of the stats in a moment, but we're creating a lot of jobs in the UK economy, but they're not the quality jobs. And productivity is a subject that I'm really quite interested in. I always have been. I've always been interested in efficiency. I've always been interested in getting more out of less or getting more out of the same. And it comes in different shapes and sizes. So productivity can mean profit, improving your profits. It can mean the survival of a company. It can mean going into a new market. It can mean inventing a new product that gives you something to build your business on. But really, productivity is about improvement. And that's really the point that I was most interested in. If you look at the employment rates in the UK and looking post and pre-crisis, we can see from some of the stats up there, these are the same stats shown in different ways, which is that unemployment has gone down, and we're at almost full employment. 4% economically is full employment. 4% unemployment is termed to be full employment. And we're in and around that number again, from having had a bit of a change through the crisis and then coming back to a situation that we're at today where a lot of people are employed in the UK. That sounds great on the face of it, but the issue with that, and really I'll draw your attention to the top graph here, but if you look across to the far side, it's been many a long year since the red line was above the blue line. And what that says is, and the red line is the retail price index, is the cost of things, the cost of living. But the average weekly earnings growth has not kept pace with that. So we have a conflict between the fact that it's great news to say everybody's back at work or that there's a huge amount of employment in our economy, but the bad news is that those people are relatively earning less. And have less disposable income. And when you look back further, that productivity gap began to emerge in the 1980s in the UK, where our economy began to diverge from those around us. And again, the wage inflation graph over there, again for the ONS, says a similar thing. If we grade ourselves against the wider world, as the G7, and you take just France, Germany, and America, you can see there the difference that's occurred in the period of time. Again, where our productivity has come off, and it's not been as good as it could be. So the problem we have is we've got a gap. Now, recently, that gap was measured by our Chancellor, Philip Hammond, and he said that if we could increase GDP, which is a measure of productivity, by 1% per annum over the next 10 years, we would improve our GDP by something like £250 billion. And that is £9,000 per household in the UK. So every single household, and it's about a one-to-one worker to household, we would have a huge improvement in productivity, just 1%. The Germans can go to work for 4 days and do what we do in 5 days. That's the difference in our productivity. And there are myriad reasons for why that might be. You can talk about education, you can talk about investment, you can talk about government policy. There's lots of things that you can look at. But one of the key things for me in productivity is how do workforces, how do people, how can we as managers and operators of businesses improve that gap or to help with that? And I'm speaking there really on behalf of my own experience, not for personal group, but my experience in seeing that change and that being different in some of the businesses that I've observed and some of the businesses that I have been involved with. So the problem with our UK GDP really is the productivity, is the gap that we have between us and some of the other nations that we would benchmark ourselves about. And we heard this morning how you pick the best and benchmark yourself against the best, but certainly I think we have a ways to go. So that's really the issue. We're working very, very hard and we're working longer hours, but they tend to be lower paid jobs, which isn't really driving the prosperity that we would like as individuals and perhaps for our children and for our future.
So that lays out the problem. Can you maybe give us some real examples of how this productivity gap could be overcome?
Yeah, as I said earlier, I've always been a bit intrigued about how to make businesses run more smoothly and be more successful. And there's really a lot of examples for me. I'm quite enthusiastic about studying the subject. But one that I really like is quite old. And I like to go back in time because we hear today about innovation, how innovation, is going to eat our lunch if we don't hurry up and catch up and all the rest of it. But actually, innovation's been around forever. And if I go back to, this is 1991 or 1992. And I wanted to understand how the really great companies were able to develop products, because at the time I was involved in manufacturing things for a living. That's what I did. And I was interested in how do you do it? And again, listening to the keynote speech today, Land Rover, going back to the late 80s, early 90s, had become stuck in a rut. Is that a pun? Land Rover stuck in a rut? A very muddy rut. And their product, the Defender product, was pretty ubiquitous. The Range Rover product was working pretty well, but they were having trouble from Toyota across the planet in some of their other markets. So they were under pressure, and their business was beginning to decline. And they didn't know what to do. And they did, a little bit disruptively, they created, in that shed, or a shed just like that, in Solihull, they created a team of people. And they said, all the rules are out. We're going to do a thing called concurrent engineering, simultaneous engineering, as it was known at the time. And what that basically meant was, you're going to do everything at once. You don't do things sequentially, you do everything at once. That, of course, means that you get to market much, much more quickly. And so they took a chance. And believe me, it was a boffin in a shed. I was in that shed. It was definitely a shed. It was an Anderson-type shelter, and it was full of boffins. But one thing they had up on the wall was their plan. And the plan was how they were going to do this thing simultaneously. And what that did was it imbued the employees. So everybody got excited about the possibility of doing this because it was different, it was new, it was change, it was better. There's a little bit of chaos, huge amount of risk in what they were doing, but they decided to go and throw everything out and start again, but not quite. So in that, they built this product called the Discovery. That's one of the first ones that they ever did. But that's actually built on a ladder rack, so it's built on the Defender. So it's built on their core product. They just put a nice new box on the top of it. And if anybody's ever driven one of those, it's not that different to a Defender, but it looks quite a bit different. And when they launched that product, it outsold every other four-wheel drive sale in the UK combined. So out of the blocks, it was a massive success. They saw an increase in their Range Rover product and in their Defender product as well. So hugely, hugely impactful for them and in a disruptive way. And for me, that's productivity. That's using your resources. And it wasn't a salubrious location. These guys were really in a pretty drafty old shed in Solihull. And that made me think, right, okay, if they can do that, what could I do? And then the other two products over here, these are solid-state digital electricity meters, which I used to make for a living way back. In fact, I've seen them in some houses recently, some of the ones that I've made. But this one on the left took 36 months to develop. And that's right. And this one on the right took 12 months to develop. That meant that we were much faster to market. Very importantly, it was much more easy to make because we involved everybody at the outset. And it was much cheaper to manufacture. Far more reliable, da-da. But that is a productivity improvement. So that's a real example for me. For my company with Schlumberger then, we really closed the gap and we stole a charge on our competitors. But it's because my company, Schlumberger, allowed me to go and try something different and to change that productivity model. So there are lots of other examples. There's a brief video I'll show you here. I've gone through a series of interviews with 10 chief executives across the UK. None of them are customers. One of them is a business partner, but none of them are customers. So I went out to ask the simple question, is employee engagement linked to productivity? Is there a link between that? And actually, can we go one more step and say that if all of us as managers of businesses in the UK did a bit more on productivity, could we improve the economy of the UK? Bit of a tough question to ask the chief executives. That's the one they found most difficult to answer. But it's a real possibility, I think, for us to be able to do that. And some of the stats, that's what happened. That's in 91 is when they launched the Discovery product, and you can see there from the image what that did for them. And of course, the rest is history. So this is their latest Discovery product, which was something pretty special. And that they're building a whole new headquarters to overtake that Anderson shelter that I was in back in 1993. It's taken 20 years, but that's what's happened. And for me, that's productivity. JLR for me is a fantastic example in the British economy of how a business, though foreign owned, let's not worry about that, as a British company to be able to reinvent itself. Because the ingenuity is there, the capability is there. The Defender was invented in this country originally. It's building on what it had before and coming of age and being a bit more new in what it does. And there are other examples. You'll see Paul from Bunzl, Chief Executive of Bunzl, who talks about technology and how that's changed his productivity. So these guys deliver goods to the restaurant industry and the food service. They're a food service company. And their delivery guys were busy trying to take orders. And when they go to deliver something, they try and take an order. They moved everything online so their customers would order online, and then the delivery drivers had time to go and talk about new products and interact with the customers and actually try and help and listen to the issues that they had. Again, a very simple thing, but a very big improvement in productivity for the Bunzl company. And indeed, closer to home, in my own business, in Personal Group, strictly internally for our own needs, we have a distributed sales force in the UK of 50 people. Everything they did 5 years ago was on paper. All their work was on paper. Duplicate pads, put in the post, back to central, all double, triple, quadruple keyed onto our systems. Pretty arcane, I have to say. And today that's completely digital. And everybody sees what everybody is doing. All the teams are connected by way of the data. But that's driven a 30 to 40% improvement in productivity because people have got the tools to be able to do the job. It wasn't hard to do, but the outcome was really interesting for us. So those are some of the examples that I'd cite in regard to how the productivity gap can be overcome. And I think we all have a version of that, if we think about it. We didn't stop there. We're still doing things to go and do more as we evolve.
So what's the technology opportunity for employers?
Can I just play a video? Do you mind if I just... I'm going to run a short video.
Yes, we've got about 3 minutes left on the session.
Right, well,
is that 3 minutes?
How are we doing for time?
3 minutes.
Okay. Dave, could we go on to the... We'll skip the video, please. Could we go on to the next slide? Thank you. Go ahead.
So that technology question?
Yeah.
Okay. So, what's the technology opportunity for organisations, Mark?
One of the ones that I'm most interested in is the mobile phone. So today, this thing is the remote control for life. It's incredible what you can do on here. I can move my car from my handset. I can order food. I can do my banking. I can do all kinds of stuff on here. It's an amazing product. And never before, in my view, I'm an electronics engineer by trade. I grew up in technology. And never before, in my view, have we had such a huge distribution of technology by way of these devices in our society. Because most of the phones, I think probably all the phones that are sold today are smartphones. A large proportion, of course, are these phones, the Apple phones. So for me, it's a great opportunity. It's a fantastic communications device. It's a fantastic productivity device because it allows people to do things remotely and to do what they do every day in their job. So if we take some of the examples here, the iPhone 7, earlier on today in the discussions, we were talking about why not give everybody a telephone. These are very expensive items, but actually the productivity improvement that can be gained from it is pretty startling. We heard about GE earlier on from Debbie about how they're sharing information in real time. We're sharing information inside our business in real time, which drives productivity. And actually, I think you can bring a lot of this back to the central core of a handheld device. And that technology is available. Every employee pretty much carries it. So you have the opportunity there to communicate to everybody. And a lot of the companies that we deal with have a workforce that's all over the country. They're never in one place. The vast majority do not drive a desk. They do not own a company computer or have even a company email address. So one of the key areas for me is the technology and the appropriate use of that technology, making it useful to the individual. And again, I think we're at a point in our history where we're able to do that uniquely and very, very easily. With the advent of things like the App Store, which, believe it or not, has been around since 2008, and then catch up from Google in 12. Being able to develop the apps is becoming ever, ever easier. When we talk about large SAP systems where you're trying to integrate different systems into one, it has become easier and easier. And one of the key areas to doing that is through APIs. So these APIs can connect into these apps very, very simply, as I'm sure you'll be aware. But lots of companies, almost all companies now, we talked about the Echo product from Amazon earlier, that just connects into all kinds of systems. It connects into your home lighting system if you wanted to. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do. But you're able to build a product from the assembly parts very easily to something that's useful. And the key thing is not to overcomplicate it. The key thing is to make it as simple as possible.
So Mark, we've got about a minute left, and I'm really keen to get your insights about personalisation and this idea of corporate to consumer. I know that's a really big thing that you're looking at, the C2C world.
Yeah, I think the good news is there's a proliferation of phones. The good news is you can go and develop the apps. However, it now puts pressure on us, and we experience this in our own business today, which is the experience has got to be what I term a corporate to consumer experience, an Amazon-like experience when you're using in-house applications. And that sounds, oh my God, how are we going to ever be as good as the great Google or as fantastic as the great Amazon? Actually, it's very doable, and that's from personal experience over the last 4 or 5 years where we've developed that. So I think, don't be afraid of it. I think, today we hear a lot about technology and the huge mountains that we might have to climb. From personal experience, or most of my life, but certainly over the last 5 years, actually the way through here and the opportunities are amazingly good and actually quite easy to achieve. Don't be shocked or worried about the huge complexity that's in there, because actually the truth is some of it's very, very simple.
Absolutely right, it is. Thank you very much, Mark. That was fabulous. And hopefully really useful getting it back. It can be simple, the solutions, and don't let technology drive you, but use it to have better business strategy. So a big round of applause for Mark.
Great, thank you.